Hey church family, in John chapter 6 we have this record of one of the miracles of Jesus. We're told, when evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea was rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they'd rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat. And they were frightened. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they were glad to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat was at the land to which they were going. The purpose of Jesus' miracles was to testify to the fact that he is the Son of God. As John was closing out his gospel, he shared the reason that he wrote his book. In John 20, he wrote, "Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." The story I read from John 6 about Jesus coming on the boat toward the disciples, and then Jesus coming on board the boat, took place right after Jesus had amazed a huge crowd of people by feeding all of them with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. The crowd he had just fed was ready to crown him king. But Jesus told his disciples to get into a boat in order to avoid the crowd, and to go on over to the other side of the lake while he went up by himself to a mountain to pray. The disciples followed his instructions. But by evening a strong wind came over the sea, and the disciples were struggling against it. After they struggled for a while, they saw someone walking toward them on the water. They didn't recognize that it was Jesus, and so initially they panicked, until he spoke and calmed their fears. Once they realized it was Jesus, they welcomed him aboard. And once Jesus was on board, the boat miraculously went from being several miles out to being right on shore, and the wind also instantly stopped. Matthew tells us that all those in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Remember that for those disciples, everything changed when Jesus was in their boat. I pray that if you feel like you're caught in the middle of the storm right now, and you're at the point where you just don't feel like you can row any harder, that like those disciples, you'd invite Jesus to come aboard your boat, and that you'd be amazed by what happens. Amen.